Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Bleeding Through 9, out February 14th on Sharp Tone Records. The album has 11 tracks, 42 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio album. They are an American metalcore band. From a design standpoint, this album kind of reminded me of an opening band's set list. Normally opening bands have around 30 to 40 minutes to play with, so what they do is they pack as many songs as they can in that short period of time. Normally not a lot of ebbs and flows because there's no room for it. It's more about creating a sense of fluidity and giving the listener a sense of how heavy or how brutal the band is, depending obviously on the band. This record from a design standpoint feels exactly the same. They just packed all of these songs, they condensed them all into this record, 11 tracks, 42 minutes, and it's 42 minutes of aggression, of heaviness, and also of darkness from the first, second, all the way to the last. Really condensed together, which overall gives it almost a sense of linearity. It creates flow, but it creates a flow that doesn't necessarily change directions or change the eyesight of the listener. Now, having said that, the album does have some curveballs and there are some ripples in it that make the record at times feel a little bit more dynamic and creating the right breaks at the right time so that you're still able to see the forest from the trees. Two of those elements, in my humble opinion, are Marta's vocals and the guest appearances. These are the two most noticeable elements that really break away from the routine. Marta's clean vocals add great quality to this album and really help define specific songs with its own fingerprint. And the same could be said for the guest appearances. Then spreading these songs throughout the entire track listing obviously creates a little bit more movement up and down and minimizes the overall linearity of the record. As far as the sound is concerned, I mentioned heaviness, I mentioned darkness. This is a heavy and dark album from start to finish. But it's a great album in terms of how the production allows this record to breathe. It allows all the different elements of the sound to breathe and brings them in together in such harmony that you're still able to feel the individual impact that these elements have, and at the same time realize that when they come together as one, the brutality, the heaviness really comes into the forefront. Now, when you look at the darker side of this album, I'm not sure if the album is dark because of the heaviness that the record has, or that the record is heavy because of the overall sense of darkness that the album offers. It's like a chicken and egg thing. I'm not quite sure which one came first, but the two are intertwined. Now, as far as that darkness is concerned, I feel like there are two main elements that are really affecting that sense of darkness, that sense of being a somber record, sinister even at times. One is the guitar sound. Two is the more symphonic elements of the record, the keys, the orchestrations. Now, if you start off with the keys and orchestrations, I think their impact on this album is tremendous. Because on one hand, they allow that sense of darkness to stay consistent from beginning to end. And on the other, they give this record a lot more size without necessarily taking away or hiding the impact of the drums and the impact of the guitars. Because in the production of this album, when it came to the symphonic elements of the record, they placed them either side by side with drums and guitars, allowing you to feel like this is a three-pronged approach, and more than just a layer, it's a much bigger piece of the puzzle, or in certain tracks, moving it a little bit deeper into the song to add more to the vibe, to add more to the ambiance, to create more of an experience and not necessarily being one of the driving forces. It's used within these two parameters throughout the entire record, depending on where you are from a song-to-song basis and depending on where you are within the song itself. I found that a lot of those more melodic, orchestrational, symphonical pieces became a little bit more visible in choruses that had that melodic backdrop. They became a lot less visible in verses that had a very heavy presence. But always there, you can always hear them, you can always feel them, and I feel like that sense of darkness, that sense of size that they give this record is really important for this album to work. Now, when you look at the drums and you look at the guitars, I enjoyed the drum sound on this album tremendously. I was expecting it to be almost subjugated to a passenger role, but it's not. It might be riding shotgun, but I think it's grabbing the wheel a few times. It's a record where the drums have enough room to breathe. They're heavy, they're powerful, and they have their own space. They almost have their own ecosystem within the overall production of the album. But having their own space to breathe, having their own space to exist, allows them to be impactful on their own and not necessarily pushing one of the other elements forward. This creates that three-pronged approach that I mentioned earlier, but where all three elements are running in parallel with one another. So giving room to the drums makes this album feel a little bit deeper. It has more size. It's not just about heaviness, it's not just about volume, but it's about having substance within that volume and within that heaviness. Having the drums be approached from this perspective definitely does that. On the guitar side, I enjoyed the guitar experience all around. Perhaps the biggest piece of the puzzle as far as the guitars are concerned that had the biggest impact with me, or that attracted me to it the most, is the fact that they didn't fall prey to the prototypical, hey, this song is heavy, but if we put a breakdown now, it's going to be even heavier. No, like they did, the album does have great breakdowns, but it doesn't live off of it. It's not breakdown dependent. It has solos, it has great leads, it has great melodies, it has great driving riffs. It has a great sound all around. The guitars feel empowered to be who they are and not necessarily always going back to the well for the same sort of experience. Allowing it to be a little bit more alive, allowing it to be a little bit more dynamic, but never going too far away from the beaten path. Almost like there's an elastic attached to the guitar sound. It doesn't matter if they go into a solo. That solo never really overstays its welcome. It comes back around. It brings it back itself into that more heavy path. Or if it goes into a breakdown, that breakdown then passes on itself into a more driven, heavier riff. So it's an album that allows the guitars their own room to breathe, but the room has borders. It's not free reigning here. So that is an important element, because it's an element that on its own you could say that creates ebbs and flows, but because it always comes back to that sense of heaviness, overall, when you look at this album from a guitar standpoint, the album actually feels pretty constant. It feels pretty balanced, and I think that's the reason why. Now, when you get into the vocals, this is one of the elements that I really enjoyed about this album, that I felt they created a few more ripples, more so than anything that they've done sound-wise, in order to create those ebbs and flows in the overall design of the record, and I think Marta's vocals has a huge impact in that. She has a great voice, great delivery, and for an album that is this heavy and this dark, having that voice adds to that darkness. It doesn't add to the heaviness, but it adds a different kind of heaviness to the song, more of an emotional heaviness to the song. The darkness that she brings, the sense of despair that she brings with this almost angelic voice, but an angelic voice that's covered in black paint, really makes this album pop and makes songs within the record have such a unique fingerprint that it's impossible to just skip by them. They immediately become part of your subconscious, and they stand out in the crowd because of her delivery and because of what comes with it. Talk about adding to what the sound is giving you. They place her in the right spots to enhance the songs, to give the songs individual characteristics and individual qualities that helps them stand out of its besides its peers. Now, Brandon's voice is a little bit more consistent from beginning all the way to the end. Some clean vocals here and there, but his aggression, his intensity is pretty much a trademark of this album, and I feel like his vocal performance matched the heavier side of the record, while her vocal performance matched the darker side of the album. All around, you have a really well-crafted record. Like I said, it's built like a set list. It comes in, it unpacks it, unleashes its aggression, and I feel like from the band's standpoint, this is definitely a unique album because it's their darkest album to date. It has uniquenesses to it. It has unique characteristics to it that across 9 records we hadn't really seen from this band yet. It's almost like they were fine-tuning some of these elements in previous albums, but they finally discover the right formula in order to present them to the fan base with such great design and great construction. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Gallows because it's the opening song on the record. It has a great orchestral piece to it, which adds size, it adds texture, definitely adds to the sound and that dark atmosphere that this record overall has, but it's also present in this song. The guitars and drums have their own sense of heaviness and they have their own sense of darkness, but it's better defined by the orchestrational pieces as far as Gallows is concerned. The vocals come in, Brendan comes in with a lot of aggression, a lot of intensity, and that matches the intensity and aggression that overall the song offers, specifically when it comes to the verses of the song. It's a great track once you get into the chorus, a little bit more melodic, a little bit more sinister. It has definitely an impact in how it's presented. And then you have the keys as well impacting the sound behind it, really creating a sense of segregation between of what you get in the verses versus what you get in the chorus. It allows the track to have a little bit more of a jump as far as that chorus is concerned. And then the way the song finishes with this very somber symphonic sound is just a representation of a big piece of the puzzle that was there from the get-go. Next we have Hail Destruction, massive sounding song. I mean, this is a symphonic deathcore song. It feels more like a prototypical symphonic deathcore song than a metalcore track, because it just has massive size to it. It feels a little bit cinematic at times because of that symphonic piece of the song and the impact that it has in the overall track, definitely giving it size. And once you start to give it size, you'll always bring a cinematic value to the way the song is being presented. Adding to that, you have thunderous drums throughout the entire song. The drums sound crazy on this track. They have such great impact. They really explode through your headphones. And then the guitars are not left behind because the guitars on this track weighed a ton. Super heavy guitar sound that also helps emphasize all the other heaviness that's already there, all of the size that's already there, and it helps give a little bit more of an aggressive impact to a very cinematic approach of this song. Almost like if you're releasing one of those summer blockbuster action-packed movies. You have the action, you just need to create the soundtrack that emphasizes it. And in this track, the guitars and drums are the action, and the symphonic elements are the pieces that emphasize it. Last but definitely not least, Lost in Isolation. This song features Doc Coyle of God Forbid and Bad Wolves. He does a guitar solo on this track, and that guitar solo really helps define the song. Once again, talk about a track that's impacted by a cameo, by a guest appearance. Something that I mentioned right at the beginning of the record. I think it's really important in how this song is defined. But it's not the only element that defines this song. The dynamics between Marta and Brendan on this track are unreal. The vocal dynamic between the two, the use of the clean vocals, not only Marta's clean vocals, but Brendan's clean vocals, it's magnificent. It really creates a unique essence, a unique experience for the overall song. The chorus stands out. The duet in the chorus, the way the song develops, the more melodic side of the song, the clean vocals enhance that more melodic side, the way the two of them work with one another. This track is phenomenal. It has all the right condiments, and when you have a track that has this sort of dynamic, this sort of vocal dynamic and vocal sound dynamic in terms of the way the two interact with one another, having that Doc Coyle guitar solo in it is just the icing on the cake. This is it, Bleeding Through with 9, out February 14th on Sharptone Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.